There's always been a lot of concern about vineyard expansion into these critical natural habitats.
Nature is everything. You have to be privileged to grow vines and make wine in an area where you can walk in the vineyards in the morning and see wildlife.
We see ourselves as a bunch of farmers that are committed or obsessed to some extent with sustainability farming.
And being a biodiversity champion with WWF gives us an opportunity to continually improve and work with an organisation to do more and to do better.
The main aims of this unique initiative is actually to minimize the loss of natural habitat, but at the same time, we also want to promote environmentally friendly farming practices.
A study in the early 2000s showed that agriculture was one of the biggest threats to the Cape Floral Kingdom. Many of the wine farms were expanding up the slopes, and we had existing relationships with these landowners. Many of them are passionate about conservation and just needed a helping hand to know how to do things in a more sustainable manner.
So there are a number of conservation efforts that we're involved in on the farm, and probably the one that most people would relate to immediately and is the most important right now is water. Water conservation, water pollution, access to water, so many of these issues are critical to Spear, to the Western Cape and to South Africa.
To become a WWF Conservation Champion, there are actually rigorous criteria that you have to adhere to. On these champion farms, they have to look at each and every environmental risk, and it has to be addressed in a very comprehensive environmental management plan.
Biodiversity protection is very important to us. So alien clearing, our replanting programs, waste, energy, water, you've got to have a consolidated look at everything.
As part of our biodiversity at Waterford, we really realized that we're not just farming with vineyards, we're farming with the soil.
We have so many different soil types and slopes. We have 11 different red varietals, and I think we have 11 different red varietals because of the diversity that our soils provided for us.
Catering for a guest experience by virtue of practicing agriculture, bearing in mind sustainability, and just a true respect for the surroundings.
The philosophy we had is to integrate ourselves to like nature. Out of the 146 hectares that we have, about 60% has been kept for the conservation of the flora and the fauna.
We've got a clearing of runoff water into our dams through alien clearing.
Over half the farm, which is plus minus 1,000 hectares, was infested with aliens. These aliens take most of the water from the mountain, and in fact, no water was reaching the dams from the mountain. So in clearing these aliens and allowing the fynbos to come back, these rivers are eventually running again.
So one of our other major focus areas is our journey to zero waste. And this has been a really interesting journey for us. We're currently sending around 1% to landfill, which is quite phenomenal. We're nearly there.
We're one of the only cellars that I know of that have elevated tanks. So we use a lot of gravity in the cellar through our production. So we have very little movement of the wine with the use of pumps.
One of our conservation initiatives are planting indigenous trees.
Indigenous plants are very important, firstly because they are water-wise. Also, they are good for our ecosystem. They provide shelter for our wild animals and food for the wild animals as well. And we also use them to support our river embankments and also our wetlands.
We can't isolate environmental and social. It's incredibly important that there's always an integrated approach if we're looking for long-term sustainable solutions. And I think what's important from a Spear perspective is that we really take our team with us on the journey.
This is where our conservation begins. This is my germinating rooms. We propagate these indigenous and endemic plant species that we plant for our conservation areas. We have propagated over 87,000 indigenous trees and also over 1 million bulbs.
So we have a project which is called Treepreneurs, and our waste is sorted, sent down to Treepreneurs, old milk bottles and yogurt cartons. Seedlings are planted, and local community members are given the opportunity to grow these trees barter them back with us, and we're able to replant them into riverine and other programs off Spear.
These farms, the Conservation Champions, are doing everything, and they are continually improving their management of the natural areas.
We chose the logo of the sugarbird and the protea because they're endemic to the Cape Floral Kingdom, so they live nowhere else in the world. And they have a very strong relationship that the one relies on the other. The Cape sugarbird pollinates the protea, and in absence of the protea, the sugarbird has nothing to survive on. In the handy pocket card we've got printed, it showcases all the conservation champions. And we've seen the trend in ecotourism flourishing here, which is all about the experience beyond just wine tasting, bringing the tourists and the wine lovers into the natural area.
It's not just wine tasting. It is mountain biking, hiking, horse riding, incredible food grown on our farm through sustainable means.
It's a fifth generation, family-run, family-managed farm, and as a WWF champion, this adds to the experience. From eco-tours to mountain biking, this is just another way that people can come and experience the farm.
What we've achieved at Botany is a complete balance between the monoculture, which is the vineyard, and our fynbos biodiversity, which we have in the mountains and between the vineyards. Our fynbos and wine tasting experience is all about the senses. It's about bringing the beautiful floral kingdom into the tasting room so that everyone can experience how the wine is really made.
We have a term called farm to table. 80% of the food that goes into our restaurants are from the farm. The balance of the food we source locally within a 30-kilometer radius of the farm.
We try to be sustainable as much as we can. We work with local producer. We limit our water wastage, and we use all our recycled item onto the farms for farming procedures later.
Through all our good farming practices, the whole farm starts working in harmony. Our chickens, our pigs, our cows, even our grapevines.
Almost a decade later, we can proudly say that more than a third of the South African wine producers are actually committed to minimizing their environmental footprint.
So being a conservation champion, I think we have a great responsibility to work collaboratively with others.
Being a conservation champion to us is more than just a label. It's more than just a logo. Our relationship with WWF is a journey towards being a more regenerative and sustainable farm.
Being sustainable is not an option, but an obligation now.
You surely cannot take from the land without thinking about putting back, and you surely cannot use the land without respect.
As much as we are farmers, we're also custodians of the land.